Hey, what's up guys? Lightsaber Samurai here, and you are watching my boy Chris Pico, the old ass retro gamer, on YouTube. Let's talk about it.
What's up, everybody? Chris, the old ass retro gamer here. Welcome to the second episode in the Sony PlayStation 2 Video Game Collection 2023 live streams. Still under the weather. I've been barely going to work. I did some research on the bronchitis, and it says that it could take up to like 6 weeks to go away. I coughed so much last night that I didn't get any sleep. And today I coughed so hard for so long that I gave myself a migraine, and I had to take a bunch of Aleve migraine pills in order to get it to go away. And like this has not been good. So there might be times where I have to stop the stream, or not stop the stream, but like, put it in the whole holding pattern thing. If I have to have a coughing fit or something, I have to breathe real shallow in order to not get that gurgle, which triggers the coughing. So yeah, this is going to be special. At 6 weeks at max, at the worst case scenario. So yeah, it's going on week 2 now. Like week 2 just started. Was it started on Tuesday? So, yep. So anyway, PlayStation 2. Last time we ended off in the D's. So D's nuts. So let's continue with that. I got more games. I have more games to talk about today because the shelf that I took the games off last week had spaces in it because I have not filled out that whole shelf yet. So yeah, it's going to be a little bit longer today. I have a few more games to talk about. Oh yeah. You didn't see that last week. That's where my IV, or the doctor tried to stick an IV in me last Thursday when I went to the hospital, and she was digging around because she couldn't find the vein. This bruise has now been here for an exact week. It got worse. It's like moving kind of. Now it's over here. It used to be kind of wider. It's strange, but yeah, that is not cool. They ended up getting it in this arm. No bruise there because they did it on the first try. Here, this lady was like sticking and pulling and sticking and pulling and sticking and pulling. Thanks, lady. Just okay. Anyway, I have not been sleeping very well, so I'm probably going to be stuttering and stammering and pausing a lot, so be wary. Anyway, so today the first game we're going to talk about is Dr. Muto. I picked this up. I remember picking this up pretty early on and collecting at the half-price books when they actually had stuff to pick up. There's absolutely nothing there now. And I think I tried it out when I first got it. Old ass voodoo doll, thanks. What's up, Stubby? And I think this is a 3D platformer. I could be wrong. It's been beyond a minute since I played this one. It's by Midway, and it has a bunch of extras on it. The Making of Dr. Muto, The Art of Dr. Muto, Coming Soon trailers on a DVD. So I don't remember this one very well, but I do know it's available on the Xbox also. I thought for a while that this was an exclusive to the PS2. Turns out it wasn't. Might have even been on the GameCube. I don't know. But I had never heard of this game when I picked it up at the half-price books, which is why I snagged it. So, this is at that point in time where I started to realize that the library for the PS2 was way larger than I had ever thought. I did back when the PlayStation 2 was the console. I did not realize that as many games came out for this console that I actually did. So, I was always... now that I was on the lookout for stuff, instead of just buying things I wanted to play, now I'm actually collecting, it was blowing my mind how much there was out there that I never knew about. And that was one of them. Next up, we have Dragon Quest VIII. What is that subtitle? Journey of the Cursed King. And I found this one at Half Price Books originally. It was actually just this, the case only, the no outer box. It came with all the discs, came with the Final Fantasy 12 demo and everything. Only thing was, when I got home, I remember I was looking up other Dragon Quest games, and I started seeing that it was supposed to come with an outer box. So I ended up just finding this on eBay and used it to complete the set, or the whole game. And when you get the box comes with this oversized manual that is basically just it's not really like a manual, it's like a hint guide. Looks like it has stats and all this kind of stuff. Is it? So this didn't come with a manual? Playable. Okay, so because there's a playable demo manual for the Final Fantasy VIII demo in here, they put the manual for the Dragon Warrior game in the box because of the whole 2-disc situation in here. Square Enix, you're weird. But whatever. I remember I tried this when I first picked it up, and I was like, it's a pretty cool RPG, but at the same time, I'm like, there's 8 games in this franchise up to this point that I got to play before I play this one, so I never actually tried it out. But I'm told that it doesn't really require, or playing the previous games isn't required for these. They're all kind of their own thing. So I might just play. I really want to play Part 4. Part 4 just sounds rad as hell to me with all the different characters and their stories intertwine at the end. So yeah, I really do like the Dragon Quest series. I played Dragon Warrior. Well, technically I didn't play it. I saw it beat. My dad would play Dragon Warrior on my Nintendo when I was a kid, and he would break into my room in order to do it because he didn't have a new Ultimate game to play or something on the computer. And I basically watched him play Dragon Warrior. I never needed to play it myself because I watched him play through it, so what was the point? But I really liked it. It was kind of a cool step up from what the Ultimate games on the PC used to be. Next up, we have Dragon Rage. This one is a Wing Commander game, but you're on the back of a dragon. It's a flying combat simulator where you're playing as a dragon, just blowing everything up. And a friend of mine, was it this one? No, it was the next one. Sorry, it's not this one. It just looked cool to me, so I picked it up, and didn't hurt that it was by 3DO. I'm a big fan of the console 3DO, and this is what they did after the 3DO collapsed. But yeah, I still need to sit down and play through this one, because it does look pretty cool to be playing as a giant dragon. Especially after just watching the Dungeons & Dragons movie last weekend. In the mood. And playing Dungeons & Dragons a lot lately, too. This is the one that I got recommended to me by a friend of mine. My friend Justin's wife, Elizabeth. We went to Half Price Books before seeing a movie a while back. And I was looking at the game section. I picked this one to look at it. And she was looking over my shoulder. She was like, that one I played, when she had hurt her back or something. Back in 2002, I think it was. And she was like, that was a lot of fun. So, no, 2005-ish, I think. But she said that she played through this one and it was pretty fun. So I was like, okay, fine, I trust your opinion on the matter. So picked it up. I had not really played it just to check it out, to see if it worked. And it looks like it's part flying simulator on a dragon and also part 3D beat 'em up. Sounds cool to me. Like, I'm all about the fantasy kind of stuff nowadays. So yeah, thrilled to have that. And the disc itself is like very metallic. That's kind of neat. And I was always finding these games in such great condition at half-price books, and now everything there looks like somebody stuck it up their butt. Next up, we have, I think these are supposed to be RPGs. I've never actually played them, so I cannot comment. But we have Drakengard, and this is Square Enix. I don't know if this is an action RPG or a straight-up RPG, or is this like a fighting game? Because I cannot tell. There looks like there's aerial dragon fights. It looks like there's Musou type stuff going on. I don't know. But my buddy Justin, I remember telling me all about this back in the day. Like, he had picked it up and he thought it was pretty cool. So I picked it up based on his recommendation also. And just never got around to playing it. It's just one of those things. But this is the same copy I've had since I picked it up in the early 2000s. So, yay. Looks really cool. There's so many games in the backlog I want to play. This is getting ridiculous. But there's always the sequel, Drakengard 2, and I don't recall if I had this one or I picked it up after the fact, like when I got back into collecting. I want to say I picked this one up after the fact. And I could not tell you what this game is like either. It looks very MMO style, but it also looks a little bit like a Panzer Dragoon game. I don't know. Is it a 3D beat 'em up? Is it an action RPG? Is it a straight up RPG? I don't know. These pictures don't really tell you what is going on. Switch between 4 characters with unique weapons and abilities. Annihilate enemies with more than 60 weapons and over 90 missions. Engage in intense aerial combat. Lay waste to entire armies on the ground and in the air. So is it like a Musou style game? I don't know. But there's also one available on the PS4. Well, PS3/PS4. And then we get into this. This is, I hope Church is here. Please somebody tell me Church is here. Because I always love ragging on him about these games. Because he absolutely hates them. And that is the aforementioned Musou. I don't remember. Somebody corrected me on it in a previous stream, but that was a long time ago. And it has gone out my little computer. It's gone. But we're talking about these Dynasty Warrior games. I do enjoy a good old mindless beat 'em up. And these are exactly that. But the weird thing is kind of like they want you to play through the game's campaign multiple times because there's so many different characters to choose from. And each of them has different, attacks and combos and specials and their own, specific storyline. Because I had a friend who would buy, every time one of these games would come out, he would play through it over and over again with all the different characters just to see what all their stuff was all about. And I was like, I don't know if I would really want to do that. Because it would be, the game itself is repetitive because all it is you against an army and it's just a 3D beat 'em up. And the combos usually don't change. You don't upgrade anything. It's not like a God of War game where you have like a skill tree and you can upgrade your combos or anything like that. It's basically like you have this one combo, maybe 2 combos, and a special that builds up due to a meter. Unleash the combo, throw a bunch of people 30 feet in the air, and they just keep on doing it over and over again until you beat that stage. But I love the franchise just because it's something you pop in when you just want to play something mindless and fun. So I don't have a problem with that. And you can see, like this, I remember the game that came out on the PS1 was not like this, if I remember correctly. If I remember correctly, it was a one-on-one fighter or something. Something like Bushido Blade, maybe? I don't remember. But this is nothing like what that was, if I'm right. So I was really happy when this came out, picked it up on day one. Me and my friend Bill that I used to hang out with, we used to play that all the time. And then all of a sudden it just, boom, like I guess it sold so well. It started off a massive franchise that is still going to this day with tons of spinoffs. So we also have Dynasty Warriors 3, more of the same, a bunch of new characters to play as. The first one is a what fighter? What is it? Exclamation V exclamation fighter. You're confusing me, Mundane. But yeah, more of the same, just new characters and armies to fight. And then you have Dynasty Warriors 4, and this is the game where they really started to double down on the DLC kind of thing. One-on-one fighter. Yeah, I figured that. Yeah, if I remember correctly, yeah, that was exactly what it was. But I remember when I played the second one, I was just kind of like, this is not what I remember the first one being like. So, yeah. Same thing, more of the same, just you against an army. There's multiplayer in this one, multiple characters, multiple storylines, blah, blah, blah. But then they decided to start making, there was no DLC back in the day when it came to this console. Maybe when the hard drive came out, but not until then. But there was add-ons. So we started getting add-ons with this game, Dynasty Warriors 4 Empires, and then every single game from that point on would have like the mainline game and then the add-on to it called Empires. And it was just that over and over again. And this one just adds more characters, more combos, more armies, everything. And my friend Bill would do that exact thing. He would buy the mainline game, play through it like you wouldn't believe with every character, get the Empires, and do the exact same thing again. Yeah, I do think I have one Gundam game. I think I have it for the 360. But there's like Dynasty Warriors Strike Force, which is like the sci-fi mech sort of one, I think. I have one of those too, I do believe. But like I said, they're mindless, they're fun. Sometimes it's just good to just hit a button over and over again. Just turn your brain off and play. So I was talking during the Dreamcast series that the Dreamcast got a ton of ports from the PS1, like upgraded ports from the PS1. Well, the PS2, in return, got a bunch of upgraded ports from the Dreamcast. Sega went under after the Dreamcast as a game or a console maker. They just became a strictly like third-party, game company. So what do you do when you had a console that undersold, but you had a lot of games that you were very proud of? Well, you port them. That's exactly what they did with Echo the Dolphin, Defender of the Future. This is a port of the Dreamcast Echo game, and you can see how much I paid for it. I have the label on here from Video Games Then and Now. I paid $11 for it. And I loved the Echo game on the Dreamcast. I thought it was very well made. It played way better than the Genesis ones did. It had a great story. I loved playing it. It was cute. And this is just a upgraded port graphically, and the controls have been adapted to be used on the DualShock 2. But it's a super fun game, a great upgrade for the franchise. I wish we were still getting Echo games in some form. I always thought it would have been a cool franchise to keep on going, but apparently Sega just kind of put the kibosh on it for whatever reason. Maybe that didn't sell very well. I don't know. Here's one that I would always see at half-price books, and I would always put it off because it just kind of looked generic to me. So finally I just gave in because there was nothing else there to add to the collection, and I was like, whatever. But it's Eve of Extinction, or EOE, and I think this one is just a 3D beat-em-up. The fusion of a human soul with a rare metal has unleashed a devastating weapon capable of destroying the world. This weapon has brought mankind to the eve of extinction. Use your fists or your weapons against dozens of enemies and level bosses in free roaming 3D environments. Utilize the unique features of the different weapons, which play a key role in the innovative puzzle system. 10 weapons, 7 levels, 1 chance to save humanity or seal its fate. But when you look at the game, I mean, it sounds decent, but when you look at the game play and all that, it looks just very bland and generic. So I was not very impressed, like I said, when I would see it at half-price books all the time. But eventually I was just kind of like, yeah, whatever. And I think I paid probably like $3 or $4 for it, so I can't really complain. Here's, I do believe, I don't know if it wasn't a launch game. This came out very early on in the PS2's lifespan. But we have Eternal Ring, which is from Software. Hell yeah. And I played this when I first picked it up, and I do believe I got this at the disc replay. It's in really good shape. It doesn't look like... I mean, the front artwork, I don't know if it's supposed to look like that. Like, it's... Every copy I've seen of this game, even at the Midwest Gaming Classic last weekend, every copy I see of this, it looks sun-faded. Was that intentional? I don't know. But every copy I see looks like that. But I do believe this is an action RPG. I have not played it since I first picked it up from that disc replay place. So I mean, it looks kind of decent, but this is a launch type game, so it's essentially a massive tech demo just to show you what the console can do. Mid 2000s AF. Yeah, that's exactly what was on the back of the box. Yeah. I don't recall playing that one. These I played the shit out of. Can't be played anymore. The servers are long since dead unless someone's got some homebrew thing. We're talking the EverQuest Online Adventures. This is the... I did play Phantasy Star Online for like a week on the Dreamcast. That was my first MMO that I ever played. This is the one that I first got into playing with friends. So I didn't have any real interest in playing these games, but my friends that I've talked about before, Justin and his wife Elizabeth, really got into it. Like they bought the hard drive for the PS2. They picked up the original because that was the only thing that was out at the time. And they formed a guild in the game, and they kept on trying to convince me you need to play this with us. And I'm like, I don't really feel like playing that type of a thing. I don't have I was still living at home with my parents. I didn't have an internet line of my own. And it was just kind of I'd have to be using the dial-up my parents use and have to get kicked off if they need to make a call. It's a headache. But eventually they talked me into it. And we ended up playing this, I want to say, together for maybe 6 months. And I enjoyed it at first. And I joined their guild and all that. And it was kind of cool, but it just started to wear thin on me. It wasn't as fun. The thing that happens to me with MMOs is I really enjoy it at first, but the more I learn about the mechanics of it and the way everything works and how tedious it can be, the more I lose interest in it. And I've never played an MMO past maybe the 6-month mark. I always get super sick of it and just quit. So this was one of the ones that I played probably the longest. I played it long enough for Frontiers to come out, the add-on, and it gave you a couple new classes and character types to play as. And so it updated the game and gave the characters new costumes and stuff. Because I was playing a monk, and all of a sudden my character had a Raiden rice picker hat for some reason when I booted him up with this, which I thought was kind of strange. But they were fun and everything at the time. But everyone I know that played, the real EverQuest on the PC was always criticizing this one because I remember my buddy Rob was always giving this game crap, kick shouldn't be a free action. I guess in the EverQuest on the PC, if you kicked, it was I can't speak. It was you're doing it in Dungeons and Dragons, you want to attack, you have to roll your attack and all that. Kicking was considered an attack. It wasn't a free thing you could do a cantrip or anything like that. So here you could, for some reason. I think they just did it for ease of use because using a keyboard on the PlayStation, I bought a keyboard so I could play this. To make for ease of use on the PlayStation 2, they just kind of simplified things a little bit, and that's what the mainline EverQuest players really didn't like, was that we were getting the easy version of the game. But I didn't care. I enjoyed the hell out of it, and I found these for $1 each at a half-price books warehouse sale. And the funny thing about it is, not only were they complete, and they still have the online keys and everything, but these had these gift cards to give you online time, which are funny as hell that they just left them in here. But I think it's kind of cool that they're here. Reminder of how you used to have to play this stuff. And the same thing with this, complete and all that. Doesn't have any of the cards or anything, but I had fun with them while it lasted, so I can't complain. But here's another one that I was always seeing at half-price books, and it always looked to me like this was a reproduction cover, someone had used a printer and made up a new copy or a new cover that probably got destroyed or something. But then I found another copy somewhere else and it looked exactly the same. I'm like, oh, that just must be the way it looks. But I found this Extermination at half-price books. It was always sitting there, just kind of like that Eve of Destruction game or Eve of Extinction game. And I always passed it up because it looked cheap and chintzy. But eventually somebody, I cannot remember exactly who, on YouTube told me that this game was actually kind of rad. So I picked it up. It was dirt cheap. And it looks like a Resident Evil style game. Survival horror, obviously. So there's that. Fully customizable spray. I don't know what that says. Assault rifle. Delivers multiple functions. It's a shotgun, a flamethrower, a zoom scope, and a night vision scope, and more. A unique blend of exploration and action rewards tactical planning over flat-out firepower. Unexpected twists force you to make decisions on the fly. Enhanced music and sound effects to the chilling intensity. Yeah. The endangered species list. It looks like a Resident Evil clone. Next up, we have... I picked this one up at the Half Price Books warehouse sale also. Fantastic Four. Radical Reggie made a case to me. I think it was on one of the pickup videos that we did together when we did like the Skype pickup videos, that he thought these games, and they were based on the movies of Fantastic Four from the early 2000s, were actually really good. So when I found them for $1, I was like, okay, fine. And that's what it is like it's a 3D beat 'em up with all the different characters, and you can switch between them, and it's all right. I remember I played maybe halfway through the game, and I was just kind of like, yeah, I don't think I feel like beating this. It's kind of generic and all that, and not that great, and it feels like one of those licensed games that everybody likes to complain about, that feels like unfinished and rushed and all that. So, and then we have, this game. So like I said last week, when I was talking about how I got my PS2, my chair is squeaking like crazy. Didn't get a PS2 right off the bat. I lost out on a raffle at the Kmart that I used to work at. And but I did buy some games, and I remember I went out to a local game store, and they had a copy of this game. I want to say the game had only been out for maybe 2 weeks or something like that, 2 or 3 weeks, and they already had a used copy of it, and it was at a really good price. And I was like, well, that would be fun. I should just buy that so I have something to play when I do get my PS2. It's just that game ended up being Fantavision. So this was a launch game that came out for the console. It's kind of like a rhythm game where you control the detonations of fireworks. So you have like a cityscape, and fireworks get launched into the sky, and there's like a bar on the cityscape, and the fireworks reach a certain point, and you kind of have to detonate them at the right time in order to make the best light show that you possibly can. It's all right. It's not the greatest. It is a launch game. It is like a tech demo for the PS2 to show that it looks way better than what the PS1 could do. I'm sure if I played this on day one, if I got the PS2 on day one and popped this in, I would have been like, oh my God, it's the greatest thing ever. But when I finally got my PS2, like 3 or 4 months, maybe 6 months, I don't remember exactly how long it took, down the line, and I played it, I was just kind of like, yay, yippee. There's a game that came out digitally on the Xbox 360 that was very similar to this and played way better. It had better music because it was like electronic dance versions of like classical music being used to time up to the explosions. But yeah, it's not a great game. And I think there's a sequel to this that came out recently too that I read about somewhere. EB games are turds, man. 2 or 3 copies per shift. It's like when Funko used to like threaten their employees with selling those, what were they? The little insurance plans for the games and all that. And my friend Gary used to work at a Funko Land, and every time I would go there and buy something from him, if he was on shift, he'd be sure to make sure he would say it loud enough that his superior could hear him say, "Excuse me, sir, would you be interested in purchasing like the protection plan or whatever for this game that you're purchasing?" And I'd be like, "No," and he'd be like, "Okay, I have to ask," and I'd be like, "What are you doing?" Buy groceries. I don't blame them. Next up, we have Fast and Furious. I had no clue that this game had come out for the PS2 until I got back into collecting, and I found it at Half Price Books. I was like, oh, okay. It makes sense. Came out around the same time as the PS2. So it's a racing game that reminded me a little bit of like, was it Metropolis? Tokyo Metropolis Racing or whatever it is? Or Tokyo Extreme Racing. It's okay. Has nothing to do with the movie, really. Absolutely nothing. It is just a generic racing game or street racing game with the Fast and the Furious license slapped on the front. Nothing special. But I like the Fast and Furious movies. They're guilty pleasure movies of mine. They're all terrible, but I have a good time watching them because they're so bad. They're good. Next up we have, and I got lucky with this one, although it does not have the manual, and I'm very sad about it. But for the price I found it at, I was not going to pass it up, and that is Fatal Frame 3, The Tormented. I have only played a little bit of the first Fatal Frame, and I thought it was an interesting concept that you're basically like on the hunt for ghosts, and you can attack them by using your camera to take pictures of them. Like capturing a bit of their soul or whatever it is. Same thing goes for this one. Stories are different for each game, but the way you attack the ghost is the same each time you use your camera. And I found this at Half Price Books, and it was not as expensive as it normally goes for, but it didn't have the manual. But like I said, number one, I never see this, and number two, the price was right, so I picked it up, regardless of manual or not. But this franchise is still going. There's one available now for the PS5 and the Switch. And I think it came out in Japan like two or 3 years ago or something like that. We finally just got it over here. We're talking about these SNK compilations last week. And like I said, I have a lot of them for the PS2 and some for the Xbox. But one of these that I had to pick up, and I got all these, I do believe, at my local retro store, was at Video Games That I Know. The Fatal Fury Battle Archives Volume 1. This has Fatal Fury 1, 2, Fatal Fury Special, and Fatal Fury 3 on it. So 4 Fatal Fury games. None of them are bad. They are great adaptations of the arcade games. And like as a substitute for Street Fighter 2, Fatal Fury and Art of Fighting did the trick. Very much so in the arcade. If I would go to an arcade that, I couldn't get on a Street Fighter 2 or a Mortal Kombat coin-op, and they had one of those SNK Neo Geo, like 4-game coin-op machines, I'd usually be on that playing one of these, and I really enjoyed playing these a lot. Project Zero. Yeah, that's weird. Yeah, that makes no sense when you hear what the game is actually about. And then I found this one also, but this one is still sealed. A copy of Fatal Fury Battle Archives Volume 2, and I do believe this was one of those games that I've been talking about I got for like a penny on Amazon. And this has Real Bout, Fatal Fury, Real Bout, Fatal Fury Special, and Real Bout 2, The Newcomers. And I cannot read what that last one is because it is such tiny type. Whatever. But yeah, 3 more games in the Fatal Fury. God damn, I can't talk. Fatal Fury franchise. I've not played this one yet, obviously, if it's still sealed. But these games I was not familiar with from the arcade because by then I really hadn't been going to the arcades anymore when those were relevant. And then we got these. I almost called it Fatal Fantasy. Final Fantasy X and Final Fantasy X-2. So, naturally, like every single person, when Final Fantasy X came out, I lost my goddamn mind over it. Everyone was like, gotta get it. The way that I almost did it again. I am so tired, guys. You have no clue. Like, my brain feels scrambled. When Final Fantasy VII first came out on the PS1, everybody lost their freaking minds. It was like the second coming. The rapture was happening. It was like everybody had to have it. Everyone was scrambling to get a copy. And this was the first Final Fantasy game that came out on the PS2. So the same rules applied. Everybody was just scrambling to get a copy of it, regardless of reviews and all that kind of stuff. Everybody just had to have it because this was the system seller because it was an exclusive for the PS2. So I ran out and got a copy of it. My friend Bill ran out and got a copy of it. And I remember bringing it home and popping it in, and I absolutely hated it. Hated. I got to the first, it was a blitzball arena match when you're like underwater, and I was like, this makes no freaking sense. I can't believe I actually have to do this kind of stupid side questy thing in order to progress in the game. And it was making me do it, and I could not get through it at all. I could not figure it out. And I just gave up on it. I did not like the main character. What's his goddamn name? It's been so long since I played this. I do not remember his freaking name. But he's a dream, apparently. The soundtrack is better than the game, I think. I know there are friends of mine who think this is the best goddamn game ever made, when it comes to RPGs, and there are some people that I know that think this is, like, the worst. And I'm kind of like, I don't like it. I don't have the the interest in playing through it at any time. I just have it in the collection because of collecting and, have all the Final Fantasy things. I did not like it at all. I've never rushed out to buy the remasters when they released those and all that. So, yeah, this is kind of like lost on me. Titus, that's it. So I'm one of those people that is not a fan of that game. And Church is not either. I remember like when I first saw him at the Midwest Gaming Classic 2018, and when he walked up to us to go out to dinner, he was wearing a shirt that had a picture of Titus on it, and all it said across it was, ha 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 ha, because of his stupid laugh. And that's his way of saying F this game. But it was super popular, obviously. Like I said, everyone had to have a copy of it. That they made like a sequel to it, Final Fantasy X-2. And this was the first time they did anything like this. They have never made a second part of a numbered game. It was usually just numbered game, and that's it. And then you got tactics, and that was it. But this is the first time they did the sequel thing. And it follows, oh God, what's her god freaking name? Yiffy or whatever? Yuffie, I think. And all the like a bunch of the female characters from Final Fantasy X, and they kind of go off on their own and have their own little RPG adventure. And I will say I did enjoy this one a little bit more than Final Fantasy X. It has like one of the, I thought at the time that this game came out, had one of the best opening cinematics ever with the little concert thing that happens. And I thought it was just fantastic. I really thought the song was catchy, and I was like, okay, fine. Then I started playing it, and I'm like, yeah, it's Final Fantasy X, but the thing is like, instead of like doing, like materia and that stuff, it has to do with like changing your outfits and stuff. And I'm like, okay, so this is Final Fantasy Barbie edition? I was like, I just thought it was kind of silly the way they did that. So I didn't really get very far into this one either. I kind of gave up on it after a while. So yeah, there's that. But the music in it's fantastic. Yeah. Final Fantasy dress up. Yeah, I remember like the first time I was like, oh, you got a dress upgrade. I'm like, what? And I go and I do the chain. I'm like, no. I'm not playing Spice World on the PS1. This is a Final Fantasy game. What are you doing? So I was very disappointed in those. Then I played Final Fantasy XI. My girlfriend at the time really wanted to play it, so I bought a copy for her and a copy for me. My friends Justin and Elizabeth were playing it, and we kind of like all would meet up online. And that was another one that I played for like a good 6 months before I lost interest in it. So like that made up for my dislike of 10 and 10-2. But it kind of also is where you see this change starting to happen in the franchise. Like they were starting to move away from what the gameplay was from Final Fantasy 7 through 10. Because when Final Fantasy 12 came out, I have the collector's Steelbook edition that I got at the local EB Games for like $10, like 6 months after it came out. It has a bonus disc and everything. Couldn't tell you what's on it because, it has it on the back here. Bonus DVD features, developer interviews, history of the Final Fantasy, featurettes, art gallery, and US and Japanese trailers. This is heavy, too. This manual is thicky. Yep. This felt like I was playing Final Fantasy XI, the way the combat worked. And it was, I think it took some people by surprise that it was like they had changed the core gameplay like that. But for me, it was kind of what I needed at the time because of the way I did not like Part 10. So this one kind of did it for me. But at the same time, because it felt like I was playing an MMO and I just finished playing Final Fantasy like 11, I just given up on it. This kind of wore thin on me also because I was just kind of like, yeah, it's awesome that the mainline game that's not online is kind of taking after Final Fantasy 11, but at the same time, it feels like I'm playing Final Fantasy 11. And I just finished playing that. What's up, VGM? How's it going? So I do like this one more than 10 and 10-2. I need to give it a chance again and get back into it because I cannot tell you anything about the story because I did not play it for very long. But super awesome that I have the Steelbook Collector's Edition of that. And then I found this at my local store, Video Games Then and Now, like a year ago, and it was complete. And then I realized that it's not a good game. Because it changed up the way the combat was. It was no longer like the turn-based stuff that everyone was used to. It was, like I said, they modeled the combat kind of after Final Fantasy XI. And I really liked that they did that because it was something like I think the franchise really needed. because it was starting to get stale to me. So yeah, I can understand why people were resistant to the change, but I welcomed it. Final Fight Streetwise. So this is like a very updated 3D beat 'em up version of Final Fight, but the thing is, it sucks. The combat is terrible. The hit detection is terrible. The graphics are ugly. The voice acting is terrible. Everything about it is just like I don't know what company they farmed this out to. Like Capcom gave this to I don't know if they made this in-house. I don't think they did. But it is just kind of like, it's not good. Like everything about it, it's kind of like a cheap direct-to-video movie version of Final Fight. But now that I've actually played through the old Final Fight games, I kind of see how kind of overrated they are too, because they were like super slow and all that, and their way they were just designed to be quarter munchers. That like it kind of makes sense, because was this franchise all that awesome to begin with? Was it really all that? Because now that I've played through the original and I played a little bit of part 2, I was kind of like, yeah, they're not as great as I remember them being. Maybe this is just part of the course. So we shall see. I have not played it very much. The character design a bunch of crap, but yeah, the combat wasn't what I expected back then. I was never able to play 11 as a kid. Yeah, that was the thing too. I know people that didn't play 11, that was like a complete shock. But like for me, I was just kind of like, oh, it's kind of cool that they kind of took the combat in and put it in here. You know, they had balls for changing it up like that. I understand why it was done the way it was done for 11, because that was an online multiplayer game. Never seen anything like that in an offline game like that before. So I was kind of cool. I thought it was kind of cool. This game's available for, I think, every single console out there. Fireblade, this is by Midway. It is an arcadey, like, Huey Chopper aerial shooter. It's okay. I got this at Video Games Then and Now for, like, dirt cheap. I think I got it for, like, $2. They had, like, 13 copies of it sitting there. So I picked it up, just because why not? Then I realized it was on the Xbox and all that. Whatever. Next up, we have, this one was recommended to me. So this is when I was on speaking terms with Radical Reggie before he stopped talking to me for whatever reason. I don't know what it was. He used to contact me whenever he would go and film an episode of the Hidden Gems stuff with Metal Jesus and say, hey, we've already just picked out the games we're going to talk about. Here's the games we're going to discuss in the video. If you want to buy any of them, you might want to do it now before the prices jump up online, because that was at the point when Metal Jesus released a video, or Radical Reggie released a video talking about stuff that people didn't know about. The prices on eBay would go through the roof for like a good 4 months. So he excuse me, sent me a list of all these games they were going to talk about. And this was one of them. And that is Firefighter FD18. And it's like a 3D firefighter simulator action game where you're playing as a firefighter with a hose. And you just go into all these different rooms that are on fire in these buildings and put them out. It's very arcadey, and it's a lot of fun. Surprisingly, a lot of fun. That you're playing as it's a firefighter simulator. Like what? Wasn't there an arcade game that was like this too, where you had like a fire hose that you had to hold, and you would turn the fire hose to like open it wider or get the steady stream kind of thing, and you had to aim at the screen, kind of like a light gun game. Because this feels like that. But I really enjoyed it, and I was glad that I picked it up before they discussed it in the video. So thank you, Radical Reggie, for that. Give me a call, bro. Let's talk. Yeah, maybe I need to give it more time. That's my thing, Stubby. Like I said, I only played it to make sure it worked when I first got it, and I was just kind of like, eh. Yeah, I agree, VGM. Completely. So I've talked about one of these games so far in the series as a whole. I did talk about a bunch of these games last weekend when I did my stream after the Midwest Gaming Classic, because I picked up 3 games from this franchise for the Super Famicom at the convention. And that is Fire Pro Wrestling Returns. This was like after a big hiatus. We hadn't had a Fire Pro Wrestling game in a long time, at least in the States. And they released a brand new one, which does not look that much changed from what the original games were. It's an isometric wrestling game. It looks exactly the same, just with better graphics, animation, and all that kind of stuff. Still has a great create a character mode. You can give them all the moves you want, everything. It's fantastic. It's a really fun game. And I found out about this from Kim Justice, a fellow YouTuber, does these really great like documentaries about game companies and like stuff that was really popular in the UK, mostly doing or having to do with the microcomputers that we didn't get over here. And she does some great stuff. I really like it. And she was talking about the Fire Pro Wrestling franchise in one of the videos, and this one specifically, and that was how I knew this existed, so I went out and got a copy. And I really enjoyed what I played of it. I need to like play through all these games in a row. Super awesome. John Riggs is also a huge fan of that franchise. This one I learned about from Metal Jesus. He put it in one of his Hidden Gems videos, and it didn't really interest me at the time. I was just kind of like, eh. But went to a Goodwill with some friends one weekend, and this was the only thing I found there. No, I found a PSP game there also. And I was like, for the $1.50 that they were asking for it, I said, why the hell not? In his Flipnik Ultimate Pinball, I really didn't care. I was like, I have pretty much all the digital pinball games that I want at the time because I really do enjoy digital pinball, but I was just kind of like, yeah, I don't think I need any more. And then like Metal Jesus did the video about it, and it looks like it is like these awesome, crazy tables that like miles long kind of thing. It's almost like you're playing an adventure game with a pinball. And I mean, it looked cool, but I was just kind of like, whatever. And then when you find it for $1.50, you obviously buy it. And it's by Capcom, so can it be that bad? And I brought it home, and it was a little scratched up. Thankfully, it was complete. It was a little scratched up from being at a Goodwill for however long it was sitting there. And it's actually pretty fun. I liked it a lot. And I was like, all right, I probably should have listened to Metal Jesus and picked this one up when he first talked about it. But I don't think I would have found it for the price I did if I had run out and tried to get a copy of it. So this is probably like a month or two down the line, and I found that at that Goodwill. So I was lucky to get that for the price that I did. What else we got here? Still haven't played this one, so I can't comment on it. But Freedom Fighters, I remember I got this at Half Price Books dirt cheap. And it looks like a 3D like run and gun action game. Many will die for the cause, recruit accordingly. In our nation's darkest hour, Americans cry out for a hero to free a war-torn Manhattan from invading forces, join the resistance, and take the war to the streets. They've taken away our freedom. Now it's time to take it back. Okay. A unique recruit and command system lets you lead up to 12 freedom fighters into battle. Intense third-person action in the streets and alleys of New York City. Wield an arsenal of machine guns, Molotov cocktails, and other tools of the revolution. Interconnected missions mean the war waged in one level affects the battles in another. Okay, that sounds interesting. Up to 4 players can recruit and fight for freedom in split-screen multiplayer mode. That actually does sound pretty fun. I might have to try this one pretty soon. Maybe the next time some friends come over, I'll pop the 4-player adapter in and give this one a shot, see what's up. I just picked it up because it was there, trying to collect. So, yeah. But this one I have played a great deal, and this is still my original copy that I bought back in the day. We're talking Frequency. Last week I talked about the second game in this franchise called Amplitude, but Frequency is the precursor to that. The first one was released by Harmonix before they did Rock Band and Guitar Hero. And it's a rhythm game. I really need to blow my nose because all the talking is making all the phlegm go up here. I'm probably sounding very nasally right now. It's a rhythm game, and I talked about it last week that you have like different tracks from the song, like different aspects of the song, like the drum loops, the guitar parts, the bass line, the vocals, the electronics. It's this rotating cylinder that has it's like an octagon shape. And each one covers one of those aspects of the song. So if you want to unlock the vocal track, you have to hit your buttons. There's a button that goes along the track, and you have to hit the buttons according to the beat that it shows you. Once you get to the end of that track, you unlock the vocals. Then you rotate the octagon to the next section, which is probably the bass line. And then you hit the buttons to the markers on that track, unlock the bass line. Now you've got the vocals and the bass. Now you switch it to the next part, and you got the electronics. You have to do that to complete the whole song. And it is really, really fun to hear like the song being put together piece by piece. And the songs on here are from The Crystal Method, DJ Qbert, BT, Fear Factory, Low Fidelity All-Stars, Meat Beat Manifesto. They're on the Matrix soundtrack. No Doubt, Orbital, Paul Oakenfold, Jungle Brothers, Power Man 5000, Roni-sized and more. So it has a fantastic soundtrack and like multiple different genres to work with, especially Fear Factory. Here and there, them in here just blew my mind. And it is a super fun rhythm game. If you have not played it or Amplitude, I highly recommend picking up copies of this. It is super awesome. One of my favorite rhythm games out there. Yeah. So I'm gonna take a short little break and empty out my sinuses. So I'll be back in a few seconds, everybody. Okay, back. Songs being pulled together. That's why the whole channel kind of. They did a cover for one of their albums, yeah, of Cars. There's like one of the singles has like a track that combines Burton Bell with Gary Newman. There's one that is strictly Burton, and then there's one that's strictly Gary Newman, and it got used in a lot of stuff, and including Test Drive 6. Yeah, Gary Newman. What's up, Retro Coop? Yeah, I love that song. I love Fear Factory. Now that Burton has left the band, I'm kind of done with it because he kind of was the band to me. So, but I loved them since like the 90s, since they were in the Mortal Kombat soundtrack for the original Mortal Kombat movie when they got played. I can't remember the name of the song, Mechanized or whatever. They played it over the Scorpion and Johnny Cage fight. Fun Factory. Next up, we have Front Mission 4. This is a long-running series that began, I do believe, on the Super Famicom. It's a mech tactical RPG. And I thought this was the other mech game that I was talking about last week, was Armored Core. I keep getting the two switched around. I have not spent a whole lot of time with this one. I was actually looking for this one Front Mission game that came out on the Super Famicom that is actually like a side-scrolling run-and-gun that Jason from Corpse Flood Gaming was telling me about. Couldn't find it to save my life, but I'll have to look for that one offline. But yeah, I need to play through these games. I only have a couple in the franchise, so Test Drive 6 game for Mission 4 is so much dialogue. Oh crap, couldn't get through it. Excuse me, I belched. This one I picked up when we went to Wisconsin. I went to Wisconsin to hang out with Captain Algebra, Rocket Sauce, and I do believe this was TJ Kitsune. Yeah, I think that was when we went to Freak Toys. Toy store I always talk about that has a real good game. Yeah, Freak Toys. Label still here. Fugitive Hunter. Excuse me, I got the hiccups now. God damn. Fugitive Hunter War on Terror. I knew nothing about this when I found it. Excuse me, I'd never heard of it before. It sounds like a real bad taste kind of thing now, but it's a first-person shooter where you're looking for like terrorists and taking out their cells and then taking out the leaders. And you can see like all their little mug shots up here at the top. And I paid $5 slim for this at Freak Toys. It sounded kind of fun, even though it's like kind of in bad taste. But I don't care. I was like, whatever. I'm good for anything at this point. I got the freaking hiccups now. Gun Hazard, that's what it's called. Yeah, Gun Hazard. That's the one Jason was. I was looking for that so bad, and I found a lot of Super Famicom stuff. Don't get me wrong. That was the one I was really looking for, and I wish I found it. I'm just going to have to get it off of eBay or something. So I found this game at a gas station. I've talked about the old show I used to do on YouTube that I started at the same time as I started this channel. It was called Toasty. It was a talk show that had to do with nerdy topics like video games and comic books and movies and board games, card games, all that kind of anything geeky. Me and my buddy Josh talked about it. And one day we decided to film an episode at the local Renaissance Fair. So we got together, we went up to Wisconsin to go to the Renaissance Fair, and on the way there, I think we had just passed the border into Wisconsin, and I stopped off at a gas station, and the gas station had this gigantic rack by the register that was like all DVDs and stuff, like impulse buy stuff, because everything was super cheap. And I just happened to be looking there when I was waiting in line to check out because I had bought like a slushie and I think like a sandwich or something like that because I hadn't had anything to eat that day. And as I'm standing there looking at the rack, I kind of got to the bottom. There was video games at the bottom. I picked up 2 games. There was a Wii game and a PlayStation 2 game. The PlayStation 2 game I got is Future Tactics: The Uprising. You can see how much I paid for it. And I was just kind of like, I got to get these because I'm buying video games at a gas station. I was like, this is weird. I need to do this. And Josh thought it was the funniest thing too. But I haven't opened it. It's still sealed. I have no idea what kind of a game it is. It looks like a 3D run and gun. So let's see. A unique turn-based tactical combat engine that's all about the action, not the stats, leaving you more time for destruction. Cool. So yeah, there's that. Got it at a gas station. That just cracked me up. So here's a sequel to a game that came out on the PS1, which was a ripoff of Resident Evil. It was like a survival horror game, and you're playing as a little kid with psychic powers. That was Galarians, and they released the sequel, Galarians Ash, on the PS2. And this was kind of like one of those weird multimedia things because this got released at the same time as, I think, a movie that I do believe was available on the PSP or something, if I remember right. There was like an animated movie that came out, too, around the same time. And it's another survival horror style game, but instead of using guns, you're using psychic powers to kill the monsters that are coming after you. It's not nearly as good as what I remember the first one being. The first one I thought was pretty cool. But this one I haven't spent a whole lot of time with. But I'm glad to have it in the collection. So there's that. This one I played the crap out of. We got Gauntlet Dark Legacy. This is the sequel to... What was the other one? I think it was just called Gauntlet. The first arcade game the first reboot arcade game that came out for like the Dreamcast and the PS1. Did it have a subtitle? I don't remember. Anyway, this one was kind of like the flip side of that one because that one you were playing as like, the typical characters you're playing in the original Gauntlet games. You got the Valkyrie, you got the Wizard, you got the Elf Archer, and you've got the Warrior guy, right? This one you're playing with like dark side characters, like the flip side of them, like characters that use like evil magic and stuff. Gary knew when we talk about cars. What's up, Peter? Yet in order to avoid coughing, I'm trying to breathe shallow to not make the gurgle happen that causes the cough. So I might sound like I'm like a freaking dog, panting. But it's as good as it's going to get right now. Gauntlet Legacy, that's it. Thank you very much. I knew it had some sort of a subtitle. But yeah, this one you're playing as a warrior, Valkyrie, a wizard, jester, dwarf, sorceress, archer, or knight. And they have it's darker, like the levels are all like in darkness and dungeons and shit. And it was super cool to see like the evil version of Gauntlet, like dungeon crawl games. I mean, even the front makes everybody look like they're friggin' evil. And I love it. I played the crap out of this in the arcade and definitely played the crap out of it when it came to the home consoles. I love Gauntlet. It's one of my favorite franchises. So absolutely thrilled about that. I need to play that again. I need to play all of those again. You got the bronchitis too, bro. But then there was the direct to the console sequel to that, and that is Gauntlet 7 Sorrows. Have not spent a lot of time with this one because I found out about it pretty late. When I started collecting again, I found this at I think it was at Disc Replay, and I was like, I do not know about that. And since I love Gauntlet, how did I not know about this? But it's still the same thing. It's a dungeon crawler, just like the other games, but this one is definitely a little more advanced looking, and a little less arcadey, and a little more console friendly. It looks pretty rad. I need to sit down and play this, but yeah. Here we have Genji, Dawn of the Samurai. I found this at Half Price Books also. This is another one of those 3D beat-em-up Musou type games, I think. Or is it just a regular old 3D beat-em-up? No, I think it's like a Musou style game. And it looks pretty cool. I got this dirt cheap. So I don't recall having tested this one out, but it is complete, and it looks brand freaking new. That was also the thing about going to Half Price Books. A lot of times it was like people were buying games because they were cheap back in the day, like when they were on discount, and then never played them, and then would just find them decades down the road and sell them to half-price books, and I would go there the day that would happen. And they'd be putting them back on the shelves, and I'd be like, oh, I need all these things. And just buy all kinds of stuff. PC only. I think it's on the Xbox also. I only have the first game in this franchise. There's a sequel that I need to pick up. But we have The Getaway, which was like a real big deal when it came out. This was a PlayStation exclusive released through Sony. And it's kind of like you're playing a British gangster movie. It's Grand Theft Auto style, but British. And I remember playing it back in the day, and I thought it was pretty fun. I really did, but I never... Like, the thing about these types of games back in the day was I would like them at the start. Like, the one I really got into was the Godfather one. And like I remember playing the crap out of it, but I lost interest in it like about halfway through because I was like, oh, it's all kind of the samey missions were kind of like wearing thin on me. Same thing happens here. This one is definitely a lot more action-oriented than those are because there's a lot of really cool third-person shootouts and stuff because the camera goes over your shoulder once you go into combat. It's really cool. There's a sequel called Black Monday, I think, that I need to pick up. The Getaway, the game Retro Game Boy Mike made. The Getaway? I have no idea what you're talking about, Peter. Here's another one that Radical Reggie talked about in I think it was like a horror hidden gems video that he did with Metal Jesus for Halloween. And I was sitting at my desk like we were in shutdown at work, like maintenance shutdown at work, which means we're basically sitting at our desks for a month doing absolutely nothing. And I remember like I was sitting at my desk. The new video dropped from Metal Jesus while I was there. I watched it and immediately went to eBay and started buying the games they were talking about that I thought looked really cool. And I got them all before the prices jumped up. And one of them was Ghost Hunter on the PlayStation 2. I remember this one was a little expensive already, but it went way higher once the word got around about the video. So it's a third-person action horror game. It's not really like a survival horror game. It's more just action-y. But I haven't played it very much, but it looks awesome. I remember playing pretty well. I just wish I had more information to share because this was like when that happened was probably like 2013. Or 2014. So it's been a long time since I played this. But yeah, I need to pop this back in. Maybe for Halloween I'll play a few of these horror games, and this is probably going to be one of them. The other one that I bought I'll talk about when it comes to the Xbox. So hell yeah. The Godfather was so fun. It really did. There's a guy on YouTube whose channel is Retro Gamer Boy. His is a game dev. Excuse me. I have no idea who that is. Oh, God, my throat. My throat! I've been looking for this for the longest time. Found it at my local game shop, Video Games Then and Now, and he did not want to mint for it. So I definitely jumped at it because I was like, I wonder how long it's going to take for this guy to realize that he's got this severely under market value. But we're talking Ghost in the Shell standalone complex. This is based on the anime series, not the movies. Standalone complex was the TV show. And it's actually pretty fun. This is nothing like the one that came out on the PS1, which was you controlling the little spider bot mech. I can't remember what they're called. It is a weird name. But this one is actually a third-person action game where you're playing as Kusanagi, going around doing little cyberpunk adventures. And I bought this one back in the day, played it. I thought it was pretty cool. Look, a big-ass butt right there. Talking about her butt in two different ways. I remember enjoying it, but I got rid of the copy when I lost my job, picked it up again, and yeah, it's just as fun as I remember it being. So super thrilled to get that back in the collection. I don't smoke. I have never smoked. This is bronchitis. Thanks, Midwest Gaming Classic. Some people get COVID at conventions. Some people get the con crud. I get bronchitis. Anyway, next up we've got Goblin Commander, the Unleash the Horde. This was the day that I decided to get back into collecting again. This was one of the games I picked up. I mentioned it before that I had stacks of DVDs that I wanted to get rid of for my collection, Blu-rays, some video games that were loose that I didn't want in my collection anymore because I decided I was going to collect CIB and all that. And I had like these 3 or 4 bags of stuff that bring over to Half Price Books. And I was like, okay, I'm going to take these over to Half Price Books the day that I said I was going to start collecting seriously again. Took them over to Half Price Books, got all this credit, and spent it all there that day. And this was one of the games I picked up. And it's a tactical, like, strategy game, or like an RTS, where you're playing as like this Goblin Lord guy, and you've got like these little minions that you need to command. And it's like playing like Goofy Warcraft. It's a little silly, but I remember playing it when I first brought it home, and I was like, it's actually not too bad. I really enjoyed it a little bit. I need to spend more time with it. But like I said, these things are minty AF. Like all these games I was buying at Half Price Books, like nobody ever played them. And then I brought them to my collection, and I barely played them either. It makes sense. Anyway, so yeah, I need to spend some time playing that. And then we have, I know nothing about this one. I think this one is another 3D beat 'em up, because I don't think I've played this. Godai Elemental Force, another game from the 3DO company. And this one looks very generic, and I remember I got this like dirt cheap at Half Price Books. So yeah, it looks like a 3D beat 'em up, kung fu-y, martial arts type of thing. So yay. See, I never played RTS games on the computer, so I wouldn't know. And we were just talking about this, Peter. I found this at, I think it was the Exchange down the street from me when I first got back into collecting, and I did not know that this version existed of this game. But when I found it, I was like, give it to me right now. And that is The Godfather. We got the limited edition. And it comes with this metallic, like, outer sleeve. It doesn't really have any gameplay on it, but it has like the kissing the Godfather's hand scene from the movie. It says the limited edition includes the complete game plus special bonus DVD. The DVD includes behind-the-scenes videos with James Caan and Robert Duvall, because those two actors came back to voice their characters from the film that they played, even though it's been like 30 years since they played those characters and they sound like old men now. Detailed making of in-game footage and interviews. Documentary feature exploring the cultural impact of The Godfather in an in-depth video walkthrough of game strategy. The Godfather films are available for purchase on DVD and VHS. That's how old this is. DVD and VHS. But yeah, the game itself, this one is super heavy. Doesn't have any gameplay stuff on the back. Just has a picture of the family sitting around talking. And this has everything in it. So you got the game itself and the extra DVD. And it also comes with this big fold-out map. Enter the world of The Godfather. So that's a map of New York City. And then you've got like the mafia family tree thing. So that's kind of cool. Come here. And it also has, let me see, the manual, which is just a picture of Corleone, and an ad for the box set of all the movies on DVD, which I now own in 4K. So, yeah, it's an open world game like Grand Theft Auto. Takes place in like the 1950s, I think it was supposed to be taking place. 1950s, I do believe. So like you got Tommy guns and shit like that. And it's pretty fun. I remember, like I said, I played the crap out of it when I first picked it up, but like the repetitive mission structure just kind of wore me down. And I want to say about halfway through, I'm just kind of like, yeah, I think I could play something else because I'm starting to get bored with this. So I never actually beat it, but I did really enjoy it. Wordle. Did you hear me? 1940s. Yeah, the DVD's got the behind the scenes videos of James Caan and Robert Duvall because they voiced their characters again. Making of the game footage and interviews. Documentary feature exploring the cultural impact of The Godfather, and an in-depth video walkthrough of the game strategies. I need to blow my nose again, guys. God damn. I'll be right back. I gotta blow my nose. so much snot. So much snot. I'm already clogged up again. Fantastic. Anyway, I think this is the second game in this franchise that started on the game. started on the GameCube. That's Godzilla Unleashed. So the GameCube got Godzilla. I think it was called Save the Earth or something, where it was like it's a one-on-one fighter game. It's like playing the King of the Monsters games that came out on the SNK, like on the Neo Geo, where you're playing as Godzilla or one of the other monsters, and it's a gigantic like one-on-one fighting game, but you're standing in the middle of the city and you have like the buildings in the way, and you can pick the bad guys up and toss them into the buildings. It's like a kaiju fight. And it was actually pretty fun, especially if you're playing against friends, because it was super silly to just be picking each other up and like throwing them like half a mile away and watch them like spin through the air and take out buildings as they're going, kind of thing. It was a lot of fun, but it was obviously very popular. It got ported to all the other consoles and had sequels as well. So I'm a big Godzilla fan, so this is right up my alley. And you can see down here, the little circles have all the different characters from the franchise that are available in here. I do believe the one from Godzilla 2000 is in here, or Argus, or whatever it was called. I know the Smog Monster's in here, or Hedorah. So yeah, super awesome. Yeah, shake down the business owners. I had this when I first got my PlayStation 2. I just wanted one game of each type. Kind of did the same thing with the Super Nintendo and all the other consoles when I would get them. I would try to get at least one game from every like genre, so I had a mix of things to play, so I wouldn't get burned out on one specific thing. So I picked up Gradius 3 and 4. These are like the arcade perfect editions. So the Gradius 3 that was on the Super Nintendo, while decent, had a ton of slowdown. And that kind of kills that game for me. This one has none of it because it is like an arcade perfect port of 3 and 4. And side-scrolling or horizontally scrolling shmups by Konami, absolutely awesome. I didn't care for like shmups like this way back in the day, like I do now, but I appreciated them as something different to play. These are like I would use as like a palate cleanser, I guess is the way to describe it. All new CGI movies for both games, extra added options that I found in the arcade versions. High difficulty levels provide hours of challenge, or just to piss people off and throw their controllers through their television. Vast array of upgradable weapons and enemies. So if you love Gradius, this is definitely something to pick up. All right, have a good night, VGM. Thanks for coming. Then we have the follow-up. We got Gradius 5. This was not a port of an arcade game. This was a made-for-the-console sequel. And it is probably one of the best Gradius games you will ever play. It is super visually impressive. Does everything that you know or that you love from the Gradius games. It does it way better. The graphics are great. The music is great. The play control is tight. It is super, super fun. I highly recommend picking this one up if you can. But this is kind of a pricey game. I picked up, like back in the day when I picked up Gradius 3 and 4, it was probably like $40, right? I got like one of my tax returns one year, and I made a point to get both of these, and they were kind of expensive. Like especially Gradius 5 is actually kind of a pricey game. I don't remember exactly what I paid, probably $60. But yeah, super awesome to have those in the collection now. Next up, a Mondane. So I have this game on the Dreamcast, but, you know, I got to play the upgraded version. So when I play through these games, hopefully this year, I'm definitely going to play this version of it. We're talking Grandia 2 RPG series that started on the PS1. The sequel really first came to the Dreamcast, then got ported in this like upgraded port to the PS2. But your typical JRPG type of thing. I know that Mordane absolutely loves these games because Retro Rivals made him a big-ass painting of the main character. So I need to play through these. I've never played any of these games. So all new, featuring never-before-seen cinematics. So yeah, it's got new cinematics on it that weren't in the Dreamcast version. And naturally, you got Grandia 3 with this awesome metallic cover. I loves it. So definitely got to play through these games hopefully this year if I can. I'm kind of stalling on the RPG goal. I started playing Phantasy Star. I kind of gave up on it. I mean, I didn't hate it or anything. It's just I stopped playing it for some reason. I don't know why. I keep on saying, like, oh, I should go and play some more Phantasy Star, but I never do. And then I started playing Final Fantasy VII Remake and kind of gave up on that because I'm really not enjoying it. It's like all filler and barely any story. And it's really annoying. So like I started playing Returnal, and now I'm playing the Dead Space remake. So I'm kind of like faltering on my goal. Hopefully I can keep with it, I hope. But yeah, got to eventually play through these Grandia games. I picked this up for a slim dollar at that Half Price Books warehouse sale, and that's Gran Turismo 3 A-Spec. I had the first 2 games for the PS1, and I basically played them because the soundtracks were rad, especially Part 2. Part 2 had one of my favorite industrial bands from the 90s, Cubanate, on the soundtrack. I think 2 of their songs was Skeletal and Transit were on the soundtrack to that game, and I played it just so I could hear Cubanate all the time. I never actually bought this one back in the day. I picked this one up, like I said, for a whole dollar at that warehouse sale, so I didn't really care. But, I mean, the graphics for the PS2 were absolutely fantastic. I remember everybody telling me that was playing this, like, you do not understand, Chris. The graphics in this game are absolutely fantastic. I'm like, that's great and all, but the games are boring to me. Because these are, like, simulation racing games, and I'm not really into that kind of thing. I like arcadey racing games. I've not bought a game in this franchise until Grand Theft Auto 4 or Gran Turismo 4. I think I got these both at the same time, honestly, now that I think about it at that Half Price Books warehouse sale. I have not bought any games past the PS2. How about that? In this franchise. There's one that's available for the PSVR, but because I don't like the franchise, I've never actually picked up a copy. But I can't really say anything about this one. I haven't played it. There's no gameplay footage or pictures on the back. It's just that. They're just kind of like, yeah, you know how it is. Come and get it. So, yeah. I just got the remaster of this in the mail the other day, and that is Grim Grimoire, which is a game by Vanillaware, and I know next to nothing except from what Church tells me about this game. Let's almost call it a franchise. It's not a franchise. I just recently played through Dragon's Crown with Mondane. Super fun Vanillaware game, beat 'em up. I'm not sure if this is a beat 'em up or a RPG or what. It says, lose yourself in the loops of time. But the writing on the back here is so small and pale that I can't read any of it. So spellbinding and... What is it? Spellbinding and initiative are a real-time strategy for everyone. Okay, real-time strategy game. Now it makes sense. Okay. So, yeah, animation style. I love the way Vanillaware designs characters, even though kind of overdone in Dragon's Crown, but it's like so weird that it's entertaining and funny. But I love Vanillaware as a developer. I need to try this and then give a go to the new version that I got. You drive. Stop. You ruined the game for me forever. Next up, we've got, oh, God, I remember when I bought these. Yep, I got all of these at the disc replay place that used to be by my work at the same time. And I was just kind of like, oh, look, there's one of those. Oh, look, there's another one. Oh, look, there's another one. Oh, look, there's another one. Okay, I guess I'm buying all of these. And they were like $5 each. We're talking all these Guilty Gear games. I love Guilty Gear as a franchise. I think it's awesome. Really awesome fighting game series. I love the character designs. I love the characters themselves. They're like all really goofy and silly and kind of over the top. It's kind of like if you were to take an SNK, like say like Fatal Fury, mix it with Street Fighter 2, and then do really super over the top kind of stuff with it, like the special moves and everything, and the dialogue. It's just super fun. I absolutely love it. So we've got Guilty Gear XX Accent Core. I don't know if it's supposed to be 22 or what. I don't think there's 22 games in this franchise. But XX Accent Core. Oh my God. We almost got a beaver shot. But super awesome fighting games. I love these so much. Like when I told Radical Reggie during our stream that I had just bought Guilty Gear on the Game Boy Advance, he was just like, you and me, we're friends for life kind of thing. Guilty Gear X2, which is more of the same. Not as many pictures on the back, but awesome cast of characters. They're so unique. I love it. Different release companies, too. First one was Axis. That one is Sammy. And the rest of these are Sammy. Then we got Guilty Gear X, which I do believe is the one before XX. That would make sense. Before it gets to triple X porno style. So more one-on-one fighting awesomeness. I need to organize these better. And then Guilty Gear is Suka, which I think is a spin-off. No, sorry. This one is the one that is not a fighting game. This is the one that is a side-scrolling beat-em-up using Guilty Gear characters. Yes, I totally forgot about this. I need to play through this one. I always thought it sounded really cool, just never got around to doing it because I bought all 4 of these games at the same time. But like the same thing they did with that Guilty Gear game on the PSP, they turned it into a side-scrolling beat-em-up. Hells to the yeah! That's awesome. And then these games, one of these was on my list for the PlayStation 2 Diamonds in the Rough that I did like years ago. One of the videos I made. And we're talking Gungrave and its sequel, Gungrave Overdose. These are like playing like a crazier version of Otogi that came out on the Xbox. So like Gungrave came out on the PS2, Otogi came out on the Xbox. They're very reminiscent of each other. This one is super crazy because you're playing as like this bounty hunter guy who has like a giant coffin strapped to his back, and he uses it to attack. So like you have like guns, it's like mostly gunplay. You're running around just blowing people away stage for stage or stage to stage. And for a like area clearing attack, you basically like grab the chain that is holding the coffin to your back and like grab it and you spin it around your neck. And it basically, like, the coffin spins around your body and just knocks everybody over. It is the weirdest thing, but it is super awesome, fun, fast-paced, like gonzo, cray-cray action. I absolutely loved it, which is why I put it on that list in that video. And I have not really spent a whole lot of time playing the sequel, Gungrave Overdose, but the franchise is actually still going. I have a Gungrave game for the PSVR, and one just came out for, like, the PS5, I do believe. So, yeah, more of the same from what I can tell. Just more like 3D beat 'em up action. Absolutely love this franchise. It got ported. I got the PS5 version. Yeah, it just showed up in the mail this week. Spoiler alert for my pickup video at the end of the month. Here is a mundane. We got a working designs game. We got Gun Griffin Blaze. Love the metallic artwork. Love it, love it, love it. The artwork is torn, though. You can see it on the back. There's like a tear going through it, but it doesn't look that bad. But it's a giant mech action game, and I love giant mech action games, and I just threw this on the ground because F yo Gun Griffin. Working designs can eat a dick. Oh, man. I am so, like, I'm weak, too. Like, I don't have, like, any strength. Thanks, bronchitis. But yeah, I haven't spent a whole lot of time with this. I got this at the exchange down the street. Dirt cheap. I think this was in their like $2 bin. So super awesome mech fighting game. I absolutely love this kind of stuff. So hell yeah. Oh my Lanta, you scratched my CD. Oh noes. Oh, so thirsty. And now we have the port of Half-Life that was supposed to come out on the Dreamcast originally. So, like I talked about in the Dreamcast streams, I actually do have a copy of Half-Life for the Dreamcast. It was ported from the PC, tons of loading times, but it did not come out in time for when the console got, the kibosh got put on the console. So, it was completed, and it just was never released because it was never going to sell because the console got canceled. So, what do you do when you haven't done all this work? You don't want it to go to waste because you spent money on that port. You spent money to pay people to make that port. You transport it over to the PlayStation 2. You port it over. And it's fun. I like it a lot. It does have the same loading problems that the Dreamcast version had. But it's a super awesome one. It's one of the first like first-person shooters. Like, what was the term I used to use to describe this? I'm like, hey, like hyper story first-person shooters. Usually first-person shooters did not focus on story. It was basically just about the action. Just kill, kill, kill. And that's all you need to know. Half-Life and like Halo were the first ones where it was mostly about the story and like the story taking you to the next big action set piece kind of thing. And especially with this one. This one was like kind of fantastic in that aspect. And it became a really cool thing that started showing up in all the first-person shooters of the day. So super happy to have owned a copy of this. The version, like I had to change the box or the case of this because the one that I bought, I got from an EB Games, and it had labels all over. There was one like, buy two, get one free. Like, here's the price tag. Here's this one that says like, oh, don't forget to get the insurance, warranty thing for the used games. Oh, down here is Big EB Games ad. And over here was the one that was like, across the spine to make sure the game stayed closed. And then down here's the barcode for EB Games. This whole thing was covered in labels. You couldn't even see the artwork. So I just swapped it out. Next up, I got this from, oh God, what was it called? Leap Trade. So I think it was John Hancock who was always talking about, no, not John Hancock. It was one of John Hancock's buddies. Oh man. He lost all of his games in a house fire a few years back. I think it was California. There was one of the brush fires, and it went through his neighborhood and burned his house down, and he lost his entire game collection. Oh God, I can't remember what his name was. I stopped watching him because his channel went from talking about games he liked to basically just telling you how well games sold for the week, like the top 10 selling video games of the week. That was what his channel ended up devolving into, and I unsubbed. But he talked about this Leap Trade website all the time before he went over to that game sales format. And what it was is it's a eBay style website. If you have games to sell, you can put them up for sale on that website. Tell people what it comes with. Does it come with the box? The manual is a disc only kind of thing. You can say that you want to sell it outright, or you can do a trade for it, which is where the trade in the title came from. You could trade your game for something of equal value. And there was a forum involved. You could chit chat back and forth with people and message people. And I bought a few games off the website. There's a couple times where I offered to just buy the game flat out, and my order got canceled because the person wanted to make a trade instead of purchasing. I'm like, the money I'm going to be giving you could use to purchase a game. I was like, I don't see what the point is. But eventually I just lost interest in it because there wasn't a whole lot of stuff up there that was interesting anymore or worth having. But one of the games I picked up was a game called Haven Call of the King, which is a third-person action adventure game. I played to make sure it worked because the guy I was dealing with sounded kind of sketchy. I was wondering if this was going to actually show up in the condition that he said it did, and it did. I mean, the disc has a couple of little scratches on it, but nothing major. The manual looks brand new, and the game itself is in really good condition. But I tried it out to make sure it worked, and it wasn't some bootleg or something, and it was fine. But it's not the greatest thing I've ever played. And the final game I'm going to talk about today is another game that was supposed to come out for the Dreamcast. It came out in England. I think it came out overseas in the UK, but we never got it over here. But it did get ported over to the PS2 instead. That is Headhunter. And this is an open world style game, if I remember correctly, where you... Okay, in a world of corruption, the only guardians of peace and justice are the anti-crime network, made up of elite law enforcers known as the Headhunters. Using a breathtaking array of weapons, renegade headhunter Jack Wade is a man on a mission to rediscover his identity, track down the killers of ACN leader Christopher Stern, and cure the criminal disease. So, yeah, open world run and gun type thing. I haven't spent a whole lot of time with it. I was really looking forward to this on the Dreamcast, and then we never got it, which kind of sucked. But eventually they ported it over here instead. If I still wanted, I could get the British Dreamcast version, but I won't be able to play it because I don't have a PAL television. But that is it for today. Hopefully next week I'll be feeling better, that I won't be pausing the stream in order to hack up a lung or whatever. And I won't sound like I have my brain in my nose, I'm talking super nasally. But thank you, everybody, for coming and hanging out with me tonight, regardless of the health issues. I really appreciate each and every one of you. I'll be back next Thursday with the third part in the PlayStation 2 franchise series of these Video Game Collection 2023 live streams. It'll be super fun. Hopefully, like I said, I feel better. But I will see you all next week. Have a good evening, everybody. Stay safe out there. Don't go lick any toilet bowls or doorknobs, anybody. I'll talk to you later. Have a good night. Chris, the old ass retro gamer, out.